You're listening to Feathers, a podcast of stories of women walking in faith. I hope these stories inspire you and encourage you to take flight in your own faith. I'm your host, Amy Bennett, and this is Season 8, Episode 6. Feathers is an outreach of Abiding Ministries. Find more encouragement at abidingministries.net. Well, hey, friend, and welcome to Feathers this week. My guest this week has been on my radar as a guest for quite some time, and I am ridiculously excited to have her today. Alisa Keeton is the founder of Revelation Wellness, and if you don't know Revelation Wellness, it's a little bit hard to describe all that it is, but at its core, it's about helping people get healthy and whole, and that's not just through a healthy diet and exercise, but they really look at the whole individual, and it's about healing and wholeness from a spiritual and emotional perspective, too. And Alisa just has a ton of wisdom to share, and I hope today you just get a glimpse of all she's about. And part of what Alisa puts out are podcasts, so I know if you're listening to this, you'll be interested in those, so be sure to check that out. But before we get to all of that, I want you to hear straight from Alisa. I just loved our conversation, and I hope you do too. Well, hey, Alisa, welcome to Feathers today.
Thanks so much, Amy, for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Goodness, it's been a long time coming. We've tried a couple times to get together, yes. And we're finally here. And, honestly, I think it's just perfect timing.
Perfect. Good. Yes, I know. I'm excited to, even though I think we tried closer towards the new year. I always say, the New Year's, it's all good, but then there's the new year, like when things are real.
Right, exactly.
Perhaps by the time that people are hearing this, they're ready for a real thing, not a flash in the pan.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I personally, even just for my personal, I'll share, I just did a 40-day sugar fast at the beginning of the year, and that just ended last week. So to come out of that and then, step into real life, like, what does that look like? Yeah, and I think that's probably where a lot of people are. It's like, let's, do real life now.
Real life. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, I would love for people that may not know you, to introduce yourself, your family, and, of course, we're here to talk about Revelation Wellness. You can touch on that too.
Sure. Well, my name's Alisa Keeton. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm married to my husband, Simon, for 20 years. I have a 16-year-old son named Jack and a 14-year-old daughter named Sophia. My passion, is really, at the heart of myself, I'm an encourager, a trainer. I think if I know that, I don't ever believe things are stuck. I'm a big woman of faith. I think that all things truly are possible with God. But he really got my attention as a young girl, born right about the time in the 70s and in the 80s when aerobic, aerobic exercise was kind of hitting the scene. I was a young teenager, and I fell in love with working out, and it became a tool for me, or a powerful outlet. So moving my body was something powerful was happening every time I did. And I just figured it was just exercising, no big deal. And I went on with my life growing up, kind of knew Jesus, but put him in my back pocket. Nothing, didn't really think how that worked out. Didn't have anyone to kind of disciple me and really help me understand who Jesus was and the need for him in my life. And I guess it's true, people don't really want God till you need God. And then often once you get what you need, a lot of times we turn our back, as we know Deuteronomy 8 kind of tells us that we tend to do that. And I think I did that a lot with a relationship with God. And it wasn't until I was married, I was a personal trainer, very successful at what I did, because again, I love people. I love change. I love seeing, how can I help and come alongside? I'm an encourager, a cheerleader kind of gal. So it's contagious. And I had a very successful personal training business, very much loved the fitness world. I felt more at home in a gym than I did in an office or anything like that. Or I have an education degree, but even then when I taught in classrooms, I just knew I was supposed to be somewhere that wasn't a classroom, official classroom. And so I really just loved fitness and wellness. And I think if we really think about it, fitness and wellness has not been around. I mean, in terms of a industry, it hasn't really been around that long. It really did take flight in about the 80s. So it's an evolving thing, and we're learning all the time. But I did notice, somewhere in the 90s, in the 1990s, as I was training clients, they were never fully satisfied, I guess is what I would say, is that there would always be something missing. And I think I recognized their missing pieces with my own missing pieces. And for me, I had the body, I had the quote unquote self-discipline, and, I didn't struggle with, overeating or even necessarily restricting, I guess you would say. So, people tend to throw it into extremes. Either you're overweight, and a neglector, or you tend to obsess about your body. And I think I would have put myself more on the obsessing side a little bit, because it became my calling card, the fitness and the way my body looked. But yet I still resonated with my clients with there was always something more that was missing. My personal life was kind of falling apart. In my marriage, I was only married 1 year, and I thought, oh my gosh, what have we done? We're never going to make it. And it was really going downhill fast in my personal life, and my heart, my soul was being crushed. I was not satisfied, relationally, with my husband, and nor he with me. And, enter Jesus. That's really where the real, again, he was in my back pocket, but it was right then that I'm like, something is wrong. There's got to be more to life than this. I'm crazy, or people are crazy, but someone's crazy. And I, just felt the call to go back to church, to go to church. It was actually the invitation of a fellow trainer at the gym. So let me tell you, you guys, it matters when we invite people, like when we disciple, when we just take a risk to say, hey, you should come to church. And that's really what someone did. They just threw out this loose invitation, and it hit me at the right time. I was ready to go back to church, and I heard the message for the first time as if it was written for me. It brought my heart alive. I felt comforted. I just felt purpose filled, but it was kind of a secret little thing. It was my thing. My husband really wasn't going to come to church. It wasn't his thing. So I just went. I went for myself. I put the oxygen on my own face first. And then once I had the gospel in me, I was then able to see, oh, this really isn't like even an emotional lack, or a physical lack, or a mental lack. This is a spiritual thing. This thing that we do with our bodies is a spiritual story. And I started just praying more, and I really felt like God really started chasing me down. I started seeing a bigger vision for fitness, but I kind of didn't, it scared me because I didn't want people to think I'd be crazy. Like I got at this point, I'm a 27-year-old personal trainer, got it all quote unquote together. And I couldn't imagine losing that dignity, in a sense, or my self-esteem of what the fitness world would say if I talked about Jesus.
Right.
But yeah, I think at that point, God just really started telling me and showing me more, and I invited him into it. And then eventually, I just wanted to have the bigger conversation with my clients, because I always saw two things would happen. One, they would get the goal that they wanted, because fitness, weight loss, it's not rocket science. Just generally move more than you take in, put out more than you take in, and your body will lose weight. It's math. It's, for the most part, there are hormones and things involved, but even then we can kind of manipulate those, figure those things out. But it was always never enough for those people that would get a goal. Then there'd be the next goal, or the bigger thing. And like, when does the contentment show up? Or on the other side, I'd have people that would start and could not finish because they felt overwhelmed. Their kid would get sick. Something would happen that would just swipe them out at the knees. And then they'd feel shameful. Never show up for their sessions again, hide from me in the grocery stores. It just was really a shaming kind of thing. And so I just asked God, I wanted something greater, and it was freedom. He just said, it's freedom. They're not free. And that's when he invited me to start a ministry, and Revelation Wellness was birthed out of that dilemma of seeing people's needs for a bigger conversation.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I have to say my word for the year is freedom. So it's like light bulb going off. But yeah, I can totally relate to that. And I think so often we think the issue is food or exercise or whatever, but really there's something more underneath.
Yes. Yes.
And I love
Always.
that's what you address. Yeah, I had a friend. I have a friend who she actually, we didn't even talk about it she was on the podcast. She sells Advocare and just generally ends up having conversations about food and exercise and health and all of this. And she says, Amy, it is never about the food. The food issues are never about the food.
Yes. Yes.
And I definitely want to get into that. So I want to go another step. So how did you get from, I want to have a bigger conversation to what Revelation Wellness is today? Because that's a big gap.
That's a huge gap. Well, that's also a, goodness, that's a 18-year conversation. So
right.
It was literally a day by day, just, once he grabbed my heart and then praying and kind of seeing the bigger story. His first thing that I heard the Lord say is that you're going to write. You're going to write. And the funny thing, Amy, is I'm not a writer. And I'm now an author of a book, but at that point, when he asked me to write, 17 years ago, I just thought, are you crazy? I'm the girl who cheated in high school English. I'm the girl who you do know who you're calling, right? And it was a joke, but, I was tenacious, I guess. I was also just desperate in my own, okay, the Lord has given me, again, I think I have the gift of faith. So, okay, I'll do it. I'm just going to roll with it. I don't know what's going to happen. So I began to write. I wrote the first curriculum for what is the book, The Wellness Revelation Now. Back then it was called Way Less to Feed More. And the real heart behind it is I feel, and I believe that the vision the Lord gave me is that as his bride, the church, his people get healthy and whole, and it has nothing to do with skinny and lean or strong and fast. It really isn't. It's just health is a measure of the inside of feeling, thinking well, emotionally being well, being well on the inside and whole, meaning, hey, life can be falling apart, but we have a hope that doesn't disappoint. So even though the mountains fall and shake, we're going to hold fast and stay together to the hope and the promises of God. He will be God. He will come through. So as the bride of Christ, the body really gets that. Then from there, we have the ability to contain the goodness and the glory of God and give it to a world in need. Then we bring heaven to earth. And so, I had to begin to write that out and I wanted to see my final yes to God. Okay, I will do this no matter what people think, no matter how many think I'm crazy, only if getting people healthy and whole means we can kick poverty in the teeth. And what I mean by poverty, it's physical poverty, spiritual poverty, poverty that puts us in oppression and chains and binds us. That's poverty. It's to be enslaved to something. And I'm as long as it will just kick people in the teeth or kick poverty in the teeth so that it, really destroy hell. I honestly feel like God is raising up people that are healthy and whole and fit for the mission to love, and love destroys hell. So, I wrote and then tested it out with some people and they loved it. And then the next thing after I did it, I thought, okay, I'm going to move some bodies I'll bring in the Word of God in some movement classes. I did that locally and it took off like wildfire. That was really where people really saw the vision. Then I saw, wow, people were hungry for this. And then the Lord said, well, you're going to need to raise up people because there's only one you. So that's when instructor training and the ministry of Revelation Wellness began in 2011. So we're in our 8th year of ministry. And it has been just inch by inch, taking territory inch by inch, day by day. My first training group had 12 people in it and they were all mostly my friends.
Right. Your friends are always roped in first.
Totally. Hey, test tube this with me. But they were willing to pay at that time. I didn't even know, but it was exhausting and tiring. I have to say, I didn't do it perfectly. I mean, there's a lot of brokenness that the Lord has had to work out of me in my yes. Nobody gives a perfect yes. I don't care who you are. Nobody gives a perfect yes. We give a broken yes because our hearts are still catching up, or our feet are catching up to our heart. our heart is set in eternity, but our feet are still kind of working out this flesh, and my fears, my insecurities, my unbelief, all the stinking stuff, all the hell, all the lies that are in me are still getting loved out of me in the process. So first class had 12 people. The next class had a little bit more. By the time I got to the fifth or sixth round of training up, it's a discipleship making program more than a fitness program. We just disciple people how to get healthy and whole in their minds, hearts, bodies, and souls so they can give that away to others. And at one point, my training class, I think it was class 5 or 6, it literally went down to like 5 or 6 people. And I remember thinking, this isn't going to work, God. Like, how are we going to do this? And I remember he clearly said, Alisa, you throw the party, I'll pay the bill. Like, just keep throwing the party, I'll pay the bill. Because it is a freedom experience that is Revelation Wellness, people that come through the discipleship program of instructor training. And then it's just taken off from there. Then it blew up again. And now we're at over 1,200 instructors worldwide. We're in Australia, South Africa, Canada, UK, Mexico, and then of course all over the United States. So it's just diligent day by day by day and getting worked out by the Lord, continually being met and remade by him.
Wow. And you guys have a podcast of your own, and so you're training people. You guys have what is the subscription?
Yeah, RevWell TV. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so people, and we do that mostly for our donors. So people that go like, I want to be on mission with you guys. I want this culture in my home, and I want it to go out into the world more than for a donation amount of as little as $10 a month. People get our monthly subscription, monthly movement classes, teachings, still talking about the body. We're not trying to say the body's bad. We're trying to go, how do we steward this thing well? How do we take care of it and not worship it, but it is the place where worship happens. Mm-hmm.
So as you've gone through this, and it sounds like, God gave you a vision, not exactly particulars of what, I'm sure many years ago you didn't go, oh, we're going to have RevWell TV and I'm going to have a podcast.
Right.
It was just a vision of a conversation that needed to happen.
Totally.
And then it's the small step after small step. And I think that's where a lot of us, or maybe me, gets tripped up. Like, I want the particulars. I'm like, should I have a podcast and, a YouTube channel? And he's, it's like, no, I'm not giving you those kind of details. That's not what it's about.
Yeah. That's true.
I'm curious, as you've gone through all of these steps, and as you mentioned, it's not a perfect yes. And I'm sure you've seen some failure points along the way. How do you recover from failure?
It's a great question. That's a great question. Because honestly, I think failure, disappointment, it settles in on us, and that is a thing that can weigh us down, quote unquote. It's a thing that becomes heavy spirited. And then you think, why would I get back up again? Like, this is exhausting. I've had my drag down moments with the Lord where I'm like, why? Like, why are you making this so difficult? And he is not difficult. He told us that his yoke is easy and his burden's light. The way the work is light and easy, but the way is difficult. And he says that as well. The road is narrow, it's hard, and few are going to find this. So it's not him when we get knocked down. It's not him. It's just life in itself. But here's what I know, that every time that there's a knockdown, I've learned to stay down for a minute. Like, don't get up so fast, or just stay down for a second and have that conversation down there on your face. Like, okay, God, what in me is contributing to my heavy spirit? Because that's not from you. You do not intend to knock me down to have me feel disappointed and shamed and, and defeated. That's not you. But what is it in me that continues to make room for this to happen? And that's where I've journals among journals of conversations with the Lord of how he's been healing me and giving me a garment of praise instead of ashes over and over. So, I think everyone thinks I shouldn't get knocked down so much. And as my friend Kara Osborne says, if you're carrying the ball, expect to get knocked down. Like, you're carrying the ball. Whoever's carrying the ball is going to get hit. I'm carrying the ball into something. But when I get hit, it really is, what's my response? And I think it's Bill Johnson who says, to give God praise in our despair and in our pain is an offering you will only make here on earth, because one day there will not be that anymore. So it's the highest form of praise you can give is when you just stay down. And even though you feel hurt, so I'm not here to say don't feel that way. You shouldn't feel that way. No, it's okay to feel hurt and feel like, God, you got it wrong, or that's, God, why? You're allowed to feel those things, but they cannot rule. Our feelings do not have rule. Our feelings are they're meant to lead us back to the place where God meets all our needs, where he goes, you're mine, no matter what. Because let's face it, we live in a culture now that's really showing us platform, influence, easy and fast. Like we're buying into a bill of goods that I don't think it's real. Where the things that last are slow, consistent, hidden, the hidden places where, so what if I don't have high ranking numbers or whatever? I'm being obedient to the call. And here's what I know, Amy, I would die if I didn't have this message to say every day. Like I would literally be to cut off my arms. I'm born for this. I'm born to deliver this message. It's in me. It's in my bones. It's a reason to get up and to make much of God. And he wants that for me. But it's not but when it becomes a thing that can actually depress me and own me, then I have an idol. I've made the ministry or the call on my life higher than the one who calls me. And that is where God will continue to get with me and make me healthy.
So good. Oh my goodness. So good. And I think that's when you're talking about things being easy and that's what's being fed. I find that to be so true, is that people just think, well, because God called me to it, it's going to be easy. He's going to open all the doors and we're just going to fly right through there. But I mean, continuing conversations in all of my podcast episodes, they're like, hey, this has been really hard.
Yes.
Yes. I know I'm in the middle of God's will, but it's really hard. And I think that's just got to be an eye opener for people that want to follow in God's will, is that just because it's hard doesn't mean it's not God.
Amen. And again, I want to say, he is not difficult. He's good. He's extravagant. He's fantastic. To put the face of that he's difficult, that's a place where that's a repent, like that he's not difficult, but the way will be. The way will come again. We are living in a world that is been given as a playground to the Prince of Darkness. So we're going to come up against. But even in that, I love that God takes even the thing that enemy tries to shame us with, God turns it on him. Like the very thing that the enemy thought he could destroy us with is part of our destiny. So there's no wasted time when you fall down, when it's a failure, whatever. That is not a waste. That is actually a place of increase. If you're humble enough to take the minute to stay down, breathe, get the right perspective of God, take your knocks on your chin here and then sometimes, but God will restore you, put you back. It's a one step back, two step forwards all the time.
Well, that just reminds me of the Psalms with David, right? Where he kind of stays down there for a minute, in his Psalms. And
yes.
He says all the bad things and he complains and he gets it all out. But you'll see at the end of a Psalm, he always brings it back to who God is and that he's faithful. So I think that's a pattern we can certainly follow.
Amen.
So I want to talk about something that I've heard you say, and I want you to talk about it more and explain it a little bit. And I can back up, why I'm particularly interested in it. But here's the phrase, and I hope I got it right, is because bad news gets stuck inside good bodies.
Mm-hmm.
So how does bad news get stuck in my body? And how do I get it out? And now I'll preface this for why I'm so interested in it. Okay. Is that, so our family adopted, and I've just been through counseling sessions with somebody who's, particularly, her niche is like adoptive families. And she was trying to explain my son and the trauma, cause he didn't come to us till he was almost 9, and the trauma he experienced. And she had me read this book called The Body Keeps Score.
Ooh, you've just read, there's the Bible, and then there's the Bible of the body conversation that we're having. And that's the book.
I wondered if, when I heard that, that totally struck a chord. It's like, that sounds exact. I haven't read the book that she gave. I mean, she just gave it to me a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I bet Alisa's been reading or is doing the same thing in that. So I haven't read the book, so I want you to talk a little bit about what that means. Like I just mentioned, what does it mean to have bad news get stuck in your body, and how do you get it out?
That's so great. That's good. First of all, read that book. And anyone who's listening to me, read the book. It has some heady parts, but here's the overall message of that. That book is written by a guy he's now, like, I believe, a PhD in psychology, a psychotherapist, like someone that wants to help people overcome mental illness, trauma, whatever it is, right? That's a wonderful, and I believe Revelation Wellness, we come alongside mental health practitioners. We absolutely do, as much as we come alongside physical therapists or cardiologists, people that are helping people rehab. They've hit some type of traumatic thing, and now they're going to move back out into life. Well, what happens, our bodies are so smart. They're divinely created. They're divinely made by the divine creator, engineered, for life. They're to move towards life and goodness and abundance. But we live in a world where things don't go as they should. They just don't. Trauma can happen. Trauma is defined as any time life doesn't go the way it should. So should it, that's why we all get upset, because we expected someone should have done this or should have done that. And then our hearts get hurt. Someone that should have loved us didn't, or a parent that was supposed to provide for us didn't, or something. And those type of things all create an emotional lock into our body. We hold our emotions inside our body. Our neurology and nerves, also our, why am I losing the word for, our hormones, what all those chemicals that get released. So when you are a child, when you cry, there's a hormone that gets released. There's chemicals that get released with your emotions. And our bodies are constantly, as little kids, I mean, we're just overwhelmed, and then we grow up in situations that are adverse. Again, whether it's abusive homes, verbally abusive. I mean, just go into the schoolyards. Kids can be abusive, verbally mean. And we get an emotion, and that emotion releases chemicals into our body, whether it's cortisol, or an adrenaline or something. And our bodies don't have a real kind of outlet place. Like it just stays and holds. And that's how we begin to create our worldview. Our brains are like these amazing things that I'm always saying now, if we could teach our children young, when you have lies, fear, unbelief, things that have happened to you that have been traumatic, car accidents, or you were bullied at school, your parents got a divorce, traumatic things where your heart is shattered. We hold that trauma in the limbic part of the brain, and that is the lower stem of the brain. It's the reptile thinking, it's called. And Bessel talks about this in his book, that all of our trauma gets stored in the brain. It's also connected to the amygdala, which is the place of fight or flight. So everyone has a response to stress in our life. We just do. To bad news, there's a response. And tell me someone, Amy, who's like, you lost your job. Like, the immediate response is not, this is going to be amazing, right? Like, no, it's
Thank
not
you,
that.
Jesus.
Right. Like,
great.
no, it's going to be awesome. So great. Thank you. No, it's, oh my God. And boom, your body releases the chemicals, releases the stress hormones, and it's just a flood inside of you. And thank God for God's word that does help us to kind of sort through those emotions. But remember, God's word is not the thing to be worshiped. It's God himself. His word leads us to him, the actual God that we can pray and speak to and say, God, my heart is hurt. I'm afraid. God, what does your word say? What are you telling me to do next? So our brains hold that trauma in that space, and there is no accessing. You can't, I think with the limbic brain, you can't talk yourself out of that place. You can't, when you go to psychotherapy or people talk about their pain, that all happens up in the prefrontal medial cortex. It's a place of reasoning. I'm sitting and having a conversation with you right now. I'm accessing the deeper thoughts of my prefrontal medial cortex, not my limbic brain. If the fire alarm went off in my work right now, my office, then I would access my limbic brain. I'd be thinking, oh my gosh, where's everybody? Where do we got to go? So this connection of our brain to our body is telling us something. It's stressed, it's scared, it's afraid, because the body knows how to do that. I don't have to tell my body how to do that. But if I can now take my reasoning, my renewed mind, my Romans 12:2 mind that has been renewed in the knowledge of God. And so, okay, renewed mind, we're going to talk to this pain again. We're going to revisit this story of whatever it was. My dad made promises he never kept. This is triggering that. To make the connection from the trauma down in the limbic brain up into a reasoning place, really is what we're trying to do. But guess what, Amy? One of the most powerful things that can do that, accessing the high tower of the brain, of the prefrontal medial cortex, and the limbic part of the brain, which is lower stem, like just emotion, is one of them is movement. Just moving the body opens up a pathway, like a channel of, hey, now I'm not so afraid to talk about some of these feelings that I've had long ago. Or that's why people can get really great, deep kind of thoughts that even are connected to even some of their greatest fears. Like they can come up with ingenuity and ideas, because now there's this access, like a freeway from a high tower down to this place of whatever it be down in a valley. Movement can do that. We also know that fascia, the muscles, not the muscles itself, but aligning around the body stocking, it's called, around the muscles of the body, has been showing energetically that it holds emotions. So that's why people can have pain in their neck from a stressful situation, pain in their hips, pain in muscles that aren't just necessarily pain because I slept wrong. Like it can come off of the chemical release of the cortisol that's stuck in my body that is now holding in tissues. So if I take my body for a walk, or if I take and go stretch it and actually think about my issues, think about this thing, I can be more integrated. We live in a time where we often think fitness gets used as I don't want to think about it. I want to escape. It's a kind of a punch out time. Like, I don't have to think about my problems, where actually the very thing we can say, let's move our body and then create the highway between the high tower of the prefrontal medial cortex and my fears that are located down in my limbic brain associated to my past wounds, and start to move these issues out of my body rather than having myself disconnected, locked down, and really feeling hopeless and painful. Does that make sense?
Oh my goodness. Yes. It's so I'm like, woo, that is good stuff.
It's crazy.
And I did not realize because I'm just thinking, like what came to mind is like when I really need to think about something or whatever, I will go out and take a walk.
Yes.
Like, it's not that I'll sit and think about it more. I actually move my body when I need my brain to think about something, which is funny.
Right. It's good, because otherwise, if you just sit, sometimes you just are sitting in the fear, or kind of like, like I'll even do that. If I'm thinking about a teaching or something, and sometimes I'm just thinking so much about the fear of not coming up with something, or wait, what, I don't know. It's like I'm stuck. Wherever you feel stuck, you're connected down into a lower part of the brain. The high part of the brain is a place where you can have really deep thoughts, creative imagination, compassion, empathy. It's all the fruit of the spirit. It's up there. It's all up there. It's not down. But I'll even do same thing, Amy. Sometimes I won't even go for a walk. I'll stand up. I have a little bouncy ball in my office, like one of those, it's a play ball. It actually is a ball that I specifically chose because it reminds me of my childhood. It's one of those pink gummy balls.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I will just stand up. If I feel stuck, I'll just stand up and just bounce the ball. And I just bounce it. And it's the movement of the bounce just kind of relaxes me from feeling so stressed about, like it's really me making myself the point when I'm like, God, I'm in the way. I'm stuck. Like, I'm going to get out of the way and just enjoy you. I'm just going to bounce the ball or go for a walk. But something about movement is the key. It's not, calorie burn. It is about moving the body with the thought of, I'm going to access a greater thought than the one I was thinking before.
That's so good. So you guys are training what you guys call fitness teacher, gospel preachers, to lead their own, sessions. I guess they're all around probably the world at this point. So is this the kind of thing that your teachers are leading people through in your classes? I mean, are you going to this level in the classes?
Yeah, often. Yep. We really trust each person to learn to hear from God. I mean, they understand the bigger picture in training. They stop compartmentalizing their life. They bring it all and go, okay, God, under the picture of your wholeness and your story for me, right? His story for us is not fragmented. And that goes back to good news or bad news gets stuck in good bodies. We were created good. God loves every part of how we look, design, shape, hips, thighs, whatever it is. It's a good design. But bad news has gotten stuck. And so inside the mission of Revelation Wellness, it's like, okay, God, for the instructor training, it's unstick us. We're not going to be afraid at looking at some of the things that we might not even have thought to look. We're not trying to, cause drama, but anywhere we've been afraid of our pain, because the answer to our pain is in the pain. You have to go through and feel again. You have to come alive again. So the instructors learn all these tools for themselves. They kind of go through the process themselves. We talk about idolatry. We studied the book of Nehemiah, who was a leader of the people with a humility and a hunger to see God's people be built up and whole and territory to be cared for. And so they study that. And they learn all that. And yes, we talk about fitness. We talk about food. But then they go into their own communities in a very unique way. Some of them just run hiking groups. But they know that the conversation, the heart desire is these people that I get to do life with in this way, we're always going to stay open to a bigger conversation. If someone's having pain, we're not just going to be uncomfortable about it. We're actually going to say, okay, how can we pray for you? How can we be, it's really an honest, authentic, vulnerable community that really says God's going to show us. We're going to stay with you in this as God is giving you a bigger insight. Let's go for a walk. Let's go for a hike. Let's talk about it. Or it's an actual fitness class where for me, some days I teach a fitness class and I will ask them a question that I feel like the Lord posed and they write it down on a 3x5 card and, I'll hand them out. And then we work out, we move. I will have some scripture to kind of for them to keep rethinking as they're moving their body based on the question I asked. And then by the end of the class, I'm asked them, what did God say? And on the back of the card, they will write something. And it's just tangible. Like it's something that they went, okay. And because they were meditating and moving, things shift. Nobody leaves hopeless. That's the beauty of it all. People leave, they come in kind of fearful, a little locked down, a little uncertain, especially if it's their first time, and they leave hopeful.
So good. So I want to go ahead and ask you, where can people find those groups to get involved in?
Yeah, so go to revelationwellness.org and there's a tab, find a class, and just put in your zip code and find out if there's a local, live. That's what we really want. We love online. I'm grateful for podcasting and all that, but we want you in real life community. We want you eye to eye, knee to knee with people being known and being built up. I think they're the healthiest leaders, some of the healthiest leaders in the church are Revelation Wellness instructors because they have said, I'll go first. I will go and have the disease of my heart, the dis-ease of my heart. I'm going to deal with this because that's really what I feel like the church, again, just getting healthy. I believe we need disciples, but I believe we need healthy disciples, people that make it about God, don't point the finger at people, believe the best in people, even if, things fall through, they're just refusing to turn their back on a good God. Find those communities. It's a really contagious community to be a part of. And at the very least, if you can't find one in person, then join us online, join RevWell TV. We'll come to you in your home, in your living room, or join one of our challenges or read the book, The Wellness Revelation.
Yes. Okay. One more section that I want to talk about with you before we go is I do want to get some practical advice on food. Yeah. So our culture is getting inundated with all sorts of ways to eat, whether it's paleo or keto is a big thing right now. Some people find as long as it's, non-GMO, I'm fine. There's vegan. Oh my goodness, there's so many different ways to go with this. I'm just curious, what's your perspective on how to eat well?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it is a really confusing time. First of all, I would say what to help you to kind of clear I think we just need to clear the playing field, clear it all out. On our website, we have our free 7-day detox. And now it's not the kind of detox you think. We all just need to detox from the expectations or the things that we think our bodies are for, or food or fitness. We just got to clean it out so you can get the Spirit of the living God to kind of help you find a solid foundation to build from. And then from there, honestly, when it comes specifically to food, I will put my finger on, and as you said, you took a 40-day sugar fast. Sugar is probably just one. It's the big one. It's the obvious one. It's something we don't need more of. It's not like something I need to add to my diet. It is plentiful found. And so I would say before all those, any way you eat paleo or keto or Weight Watchers or whatever it is, they're all going to pretty much steer you towards whole food. No one's going to say have 5 tablespoons of white sugar a day, right? They're all going to go more towards some whole foods. Some will go higher in fat, some will go higher in carb, blah, 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 all those. I just kind of go, before you even move there, address the sugar addiction, because honestly, sugar itself keeps us, one, from thinking clearly, even having clear thoughts. Brain fog is real. Restlessness, we're not sleeping well. So when we don't have good sleep and we don't have good day energy, thought or production, we don't even know, should I do the keto diet? What are you saying, God? I do believe God can direct everyone. Some people will eat meat, some won't. I think it's a very personal path that you have to walk with God. But first thing first, get rid of all the noise. And part of that noise is sugar in our food. So I tend to encourage people that. But honestly, even before that, because that can feel overwhelming for some, I'm not doing a 40-day sugar fast. I totally agree with you. Don't get overwhelmed. I always say to people, just what's the one thing the Lord is asking you to do that would help to turn you in a better direction, to catch the wind of the Holy Spirit, to put your sail in the right position, to catch it because He's blowing. Obviously, for some, maybe it's just going to bed earlier. Do something that moves you towards health. But if we're talking specifically food, I would always say, take a look at how much of your food is actual food. How much food do you actually do you eat in a day that if it wasn't refrigerated, or wasn't on a shelf, if it's on a shelf for longer than 3 days, will die, or 3 or 4 days. Those types of foods are carrying energy for you that they have energy that they need to sustain life, that if you eat it, then you will have it. So I think just food in general, less foods that's processed, Frankenstein foods, more real whole foods. I think, we're all kind of we're inundated with choices. There's too many choices now. Once upon a time, it was very simple. And that's why, our bodies were a lot just leaner and stronger and lived in a healthier place, where now we have so many processed foods that are chemically unbalanced, mess with our chemicals, and also cause inflammation inside of us. So we ache, we hurt, we just don't feel good. So I'll tell you, just pull back. Your body's going to feel mad. You're going to feel cranky, like a baby who can't have, a kid who can't have sugar. Get headaches. Things will happen. But just know the answer to your pain is in your pain. So move into that pain and you'll come out the other side with a lot more clarity, energy, sleep will feel better. Skin will be, you'll just see the glow starts to happen as we move these foods out that are not real foods.
Yes. And I love that. The key that I was thinking about was the inflammation. It's just all the disease. I think I read something. Oh no, that was about your thought life. your thought life does cause a lot of disease.
Oh, yes. Well, 95% of all chronic illness is stress related. Well,
Yeah.
stress comes off of thoughts. Like, what am I thinking will dictate my beliefs dictate my biology. So what am I thinking about? What am I believing? Because that will tell my body to, hey, send out more cortisol, or hey, send out some dopamine. It's going to be okay. Relax, breathe. Bring more ways to cool yourself, cool the body. And that's why real foods cool the body rather than the engineered foods inflame it and cause inflammation.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, so good. Well, I have enjoyed this so much, and I'm really excited to jump more in somewhere, wherever the Lord might lead me. And hopefully,
Thanks, Amy.
The people listening have been encouraged and inspired to, look at this more. And I think it's such a new concept.
Yes,
that,
it really is.
Golly, that movement can really open these doorways.
Yes.
To pain and healing from that. So I'm excited for people to hear that.
Thank you. Yes, me too. Thank you for having me.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Lisa.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Oh man, did you guys just love that? I had light bulbs going off left and right as she was talking, and just really saw how our spiritual and emotional health is connected to our physical health. I mean, I think we all know that if we were to think about it, but it's amazing how science is just now showing exactly how all that works. It's just so amazing to me. And I hope whether your struggle seems to be with food at the moment, or maybe it's showing yourself from, the exercise angle, or it's really maybe showing itself through emotional and spiritual issues. I hope this at least begins to put the pieces together for you about how they may all be connected, and to reach out maybe through their podcast or RevWell TV. Or maybe you're even inspired to go to their instructor training. I hope you do just that. But I am just really inspired by Alisa, and she has led this ministry for over 2 decades. And I'm just reminded today that God works just step by step in where he's leading us. So maybe if you get like me sometimes and you want the big picture and all the details of what's coming up, you can actually just rest in whatever God has you doing right now. He will be sure to show you the next step. So guys, I hope that was encouraging to you. And if it was, I would love for you to share with your friends. You can find show notes over at abidingministries.net. And I have the post up on Instagram and Facebook. And you can follow us on those accounts at Abiding Ministries. Appreciate you guys so much for listening this week. And we'll see you next week on Feathers.